Okay, so someone in the community shared this with me. It's from Instagram, Mrs. Frazzled. I'm just going to play it for you and then we'll get into it.
Somebody the other day said a lot of times people talk about protecting children, they're talking about them as an asset, not as like a person. And that hit.
That's the best way to describe it. Oh, literally tattoo that on my neck right now. That's why I'm getting so mad all the time because when I'm talking about kids in meetings, I'm talking about them as people and other people are okay. Wow.
All right, so this is like amazing timing. I started this conversation with someone from the community and they shared that with me, and I was like, oh my gosh, 2000% yes, this is so powerful. And then my kid just came home with a social studies assignment. He's 13, and it's ask someone in your family all these questions. So it's like, what values were you raised with? Like, what religious experiences did you have? What did your parents want you to do? What did your teachers want you to do? What did your friends want you to do? Like, what were your rites of passage and how did that shape who you are as an adult? And it was wild to answer all these questions. And I felt awkward, honestly, because I was like, what was I exposed to? Like, follow the rules. Don't ask any questions. Like, what did I learn about gender and sexuality and all these different identifiers, and I was like, oh, I learned racism, homophobia, transphobia, classism, elitism, ableism, white supremacy, right? Those were explicitly taught to me as a kid, like without. I mean, I wouldn't say that white supremacy was explicitly taught to me, but it was explicitly taught to me that, like, you're assigned female at birth. That means you're only here to be a wife and a mother. And, like, don't question men or God, and follow the rules and be successful in whatever you do. And your version of success is going to be getting married and having kids. And, like, if you end up working, it should be something like being a teacher so you can be part-time so you can take care of your kids, or working with the church. Um, and the main message was like, don't question authority, follow the rules, be successful, like don't rock the boat, stay with the in group. I was explicitly like discouraged from having friendships outside of our branch of Christianity. I remember there was a girl who I was really just like really enjoyed and loved and wanted to be closer with, and her family was Catholic, and it was like, we don't really hang out with Catholics, you know? And I had my first friend when I that was outside of their church community, when I was 20 years old. It was until I was 20 that I had a close friendship with someone who was outside of the church, because our life was just literally the Christian school that I went to and the church that I grew up in. And I have a lot of appreciation and respect for why that was my upbringing. As a parent now, I really relate to how challenging it is to be a parent and how much you want your kid to not suffer the way that you suffered. There's a ton of projection that goes into parenting. And my parents really suffered for lack of community and lack of structure. They both had really unstructured, scary home environments growing up with a lot of physical and emotional and verbal and substance abuse. And there was poverty and there was instability and there wasn't a big community to support them. And there was just sort of like anything goes in terms of behavior and not a lot of values. And so I get why they would be attracted to something like evangelical Christianity, which provided a lot of structure and a lot of sweetness, in those communities. If you follow the rules, you get to be really loved and adored. And so I really respect all of the decisions they made, and also now appreciate how those decisions shaped me. But it was a little funny to answer those questions on my kids' homework because there wasn't a question that said like, and how do you feel about that now? Or like, how did you deal with that? Like if it wasn't something that felt like values that you wanted to continue into your adulthood. So it's a little, I don't know, just I feel a little awkward. I want to put like an addendum on the bottom, like, oh my gosh, these are none of these things are things that I am living by now. Um, but I assume that this teacher will figure it out from knowing me and my kid. So I also wanted to just share a little bit more about what this person in the community shared in terms of when they dug a little deeper with ChatGPT around this concept that they shared of seeing a child as an asset versus seeing a child as a person. So in my upbringing, I certainly was an asset in that I could, A, like continue Christianity if I followed all these rules. They were hoping that, right, I would be able to like go out and continue to be like a message for Jesus or whatever. Um, Also, I would be an asset in terms of like I could give back to the community and support the community and my parents. And if I follow the rules, then I could like grow in wealth and stature. Which were very important to them. So my following the rules were to protect me as an asset. If I were to question the rules, then I wouldn't be um, able to support the community and the movement in the way that was hoped for. And this is very helpful in understanding how kids are treated in schools and in families, and how there's so much politically around like, don't let kids have access to trans affirming or gender affirming healthcare, et cetera, because then they might not um, stay in line with the way that we see them as being an asset, or help them to learn in schools how to be good employees, because then that will be an asset for the future like CEOs and corporations that want to employ them, and be able to have them just follow the rules without question, right? So it makes all of the politics around education and healthcare, especially for women and people assigned female at birth and children, because we can see that not only are children viewed as assets, but also people assigned female at birth, because they have this reproductive function that serves the growth of certain belief sets, and then also because they have this function of caregiving, which can be used without pay if you are keeping them in this one ideological framework. We can have a bunch of assigned female at birth doing free caregiving, so that we don't have to pay for that, which also supports the growth of these uh, corporations, et cetera, when they have a whole bunch of people assigned female at birth in the homes caring for children and the elderly and for the home. So let's see. This person did a beautiful job going through ChatGPT and getting some more information. So I'm just gonna share a little bit of what they found, that the distinction protecting children as an asset versus as a person cuts right to the heart of how control operates in family institutions and societies. When children are seen as assets, their protection is about preserving their utility, obedience, and alignment with the values of the authority figures around them. It's about shaping them into something that serves a purpose, whether that's upholding family legacy, reinforcing cultural norms, or maintaining ideological purity. And I would offer that it's also about maintaining their contribution in the workforce and in the home. So if I were to have followed all of the rules of my upbringing, I would have given free childcare and housekeeping to whichever man I had married, and I would have given like really consistent, like excellent quality work to whatever job I was in, and have accepted lower pay and like unfair working standards and all of that kind of stuff. So I would have served as cheap labor, both in paid labor and in free labor through so cheap and free labor through housekeeping, caregiving, and anything I was doing as an employee. So then they go on to say, when children are protected as people, the focus shifts to supporting their development as autonomous beings with their own inner world perspectives and potential for self-actualization. This kind of protection involves equipping them with critical thinking skills, emotional resilience, and the ability to navigate the world with agency. So, they went on to say how like much of mainstream parenting, education, and religion is about control, like what people should or shouldn't do, what they should believe, what options they have. If you shape what they're exposed to, you shape their framework for interpreting reality, and the line between protection and control can get blurry, especially when fear is a driving factor. So, coming out of evangelical Christianity, it has been a lot of people who have had that experience call the word is deconstruction. You're like taking apart all of this framework that you thought like you were just a piece of you were just to be used to the utility of the religion, of the corporation, of the patriarchy, right? And I really understood growing up that I was like serving the patriarchy because the model was that God was a man and that God had authority over um, women, basically, and children. And so it was not hidden that I was being raised to be of service. There's a song that often comes into my head from my childhood, and it's Make me a servant, humble and meek. Lord, let me lift up those who are weak. And may the prayer of my heart always be, make me a servant today. So it was like brainwashing through music, through fear, through, um, putting me into service positions, through, I was always serving, and it was about being connected to and loving God that I was training myself and brainwashing myself into being of service and a servant's heart so that I could easily be used. Um, and I don't think that my parents had an awareness of that, but I can really respect why it was of great value to them because it is a really nice community to be in where everybody's sweet and loving if you're following the rules. And so it's just a really interesting concept to help us understand what it is that we are becoming when we're following the rules. So for those of us who especially even see this coming into play in the world of like spirituality and manifestation, like, oh, like you're more of an asset to that community. Even I've been in, manifesting abundance courses and programs and stuff. And the people who were highlighted, like who got their, little shares or posts reshared by the leader, the people who got to be interviewed by the leader and put onto the YouTube channel and talked about as like, wow, look at this. This is an example of our program. They were not the people who were like, my life is getting better. I'm feeling more self-actualized. I'm feeling more autonomous and I have more respect and love for myself. They were the people who were like, I tripled my income. I bought the house of my dreams. I got engaged and now I'm getting married to someone who I really love, right? So they are being an asset to even that program. So, when you learn about things like The Secret or the Law of Attraction or Abraham Hicks or any of these things, you're really going to hear stories, or Neville Goddard, he's going to tell all the stories of the people that got money, got relationships, got the same things that these, more control, like overtly control based religious conservative folks push. It's the same things: relationship, money, health, right? I healed myself. I am rich. I have a loving partner. Those are the same three things that are like celebrated in both communities, whether it's the manifesting spiritual community world or the conservative evangelical Christian fear-based control. They're both creating assets that can then further the movement because if Neville Goddard didn't have a bunch of stories of people who did that, then nobody would be interested in that material, right? So it's interesting to see how we can be used as an asset in both of these realms, or trained into seeing ourselves as an asset and trying to prove ourselves as an asset in both of these frameworks, um, which is like in neither of those are we actually becoming autonomous, self-reliant, like self-actualized, not self-reliant, self-actualized um, autonomous beings with our own inner world perspectives and potential for self-actualization, right? Those things having critical thinking skills, emotional resilience, and ability to navigate the world with agency. Those things do not require health or wealth or a relationship, romantic relationship. All, self-actualization does not require any of those things. We can self-actualize with no money, with no relationship, and in sickness. And so it's just another opportunity to look at the things that are coming from fear in order to like meet the expectations of the external authority, whether that external authority is spiritual or not. We can ask ourselves in any given moment, am I working towards becoming an asset to something outside of myself, or am I working towards like reaffirming my personhood? Um, in the tradition of Kwanzaa, which is an African American um, holiday, but also principles of living, there's a principle called Kujichagulia, and it means self-determination. And self-determination is something that we are all born to connect with. I believe there's a gravitational pull towards Kujichagulia or self-determination, self-actualization. And if you find yourself feeling like a failure, whether it's a failure in the spiritual sense, spiritual world sense, or a failure in the like traditional cultural world sense, give yourself the opportunity to ask that question. Am I treating myself as an asset or as a person? Okay, I love you so much.